So I'm president of Metro Trails, a nonprofit organization I informally founded 28 years ago. And Ed, what are you doing? And this is my son Ed, who will be running around like a maniac the whole time. He's kind of like a sideshow. Ed, come back over here. Stay in here. We're doing a presentation, okay? You're going to be my helper, right? So I started organizing hikes 28 years ago. We do them every Sunday all over the tri-state area, and there's a heavy focus on transportation history in all of them. When I started it was with the old Lackawanna Main Line, the Warren Railroad built in 1856. It's still my favorite one to hike. I've been tracing it now for all this time. We do it every year on our anniversary hike, and I'm going to show you that route that we took on that first hike and give you some of my personal background stories walking it, why I love it so much, what I'd like to see happen with it in the future. It's brought me to a career in this. My full-time job is with State Park Service. I'm chairman of the Board of Recreation for Warren County, and I'm president of Metro Trails. So I wear 3 different hats, but they're all kind of related to recreation, and it's all because of how much I love this stuff. So what we did, it was built on my birthday party. I couldn't have a birthday party at my house. We decided that we were going to gather my closest friends and do a 20-mile hike tracing the route of my favorite abandoned railroad, which was the old Lackawanna Main. And I got my mom, I had turned 17 that day, so I got my mom to drop us off in Columbia, New Jersey. We walked across the Portland-Columbia footbridge, got on the tracks, and just started following them south to Washington. And by the end of it, my friends were telling me this is one of the best parties they've ever been to. So we've gone with the premise that it's kind of like a wandering party, and we keep it going to this day. But there's so much history behind it, and just like I was doing back then, I'm still narrating to all my friends all the history. We stop at a place, I learn about new places every week, every hike somehow connects to a previous one, and we're getting to spots. I say, okay, history lesson time, and then some people wander off, and some people listen, and everybody gets out of it what they will. So, we'll start with right where we started, and we could get the lights then. Well, and first, I want to thank Tariq for being our host here at Northlandz. We're going to do this once a month.
Once a month, every month, yes.
We're planning on the first Wednesday of every month. I've got probably 20 different presentations like this one ready to go, all on routes that we have been following for years.
Daddy?
Yes, Dad?
Daddy,
Don't get lost, okay? So I'm going to have a new one of these every month, of all completely different material. And it seems like it's appropriate to start with the one that got our organization started. So thanks to Tariq for inviting us in to do this and offering free community programs out of this place. It's a great thing to not only raise awareness of history and our natural and cultural resources, but also this place too, which I highly recommend everybody check it out. I'm thankful that they've kept it going, and it's great to be here. So what we're looking at, this is the Portland-Columbia covered bridge. This was the last covered bridge to span the Delaware River. Today, it is the site of the Portland-Columbia pedestrian bridge on the same site as the original. Now these double tracks here are the original Lackawanna Main Line. The bridge was a Burr Arch Truss style span built in 1869. That's what it looks like today. And it was, when Hurricane Diane came in 1955, it washed out the bridge. It washed out 3 of the 4 spans. And so it was replaced by the current pedestrian bridge. It's a historic site not only for the fact that it was the last covered bridge to span the Delaware River, but because that was also the route the Appalachian Trail took. You remember when Benton McKay laid out the Appalachian Trail in the 1930s, the Route 80 bridge wasn't there. And you weren't going to swim across the Delaware, so you had to make your way all the way down to Columbia and go across the covered bridge. The covered bridge was open to pedestrian and vehicles, both, until 1953. In 1953 it was cut off and it became a pedestrian bridge only, and then it washed out a couple years later. So fortunately we still have a really nice pedestrian bridge there to this day, and that's where we started all of this. We actually were supposed to start in Portland, but my mom was afraid to drive into Pennsylvania because she didn't think she'd find her way back, so she dropped us off there. I didn't have a driver's license yet. So another view of the bridge. So you're looking at this bridge. That house there was the toll house for the bridge. It still exists. After a while, they lifted it up off its foundation and turned it 180 degrees. So you'll notice if you go to the side of the pedestrian bridge now, it's still there, but it's just not facing the same way. I think somebody else is coming here, trying to get a hold of me. Oh, I'll do that. And there's what it looks like today. So this goes back, when we look at this, to before I was leading the group hikes. I've been hiking every Sunday of my entire life with my grandfather since I was 3 years old. My grandfather's Eldon Allen. He's a land surveyor. He's 93 years old, and he still gets out and moves around, and he's doing pretty well. But he brought me out hiking every Sunday. And this old railroad line was one of the first places he took me, and even if we were up at the Water Gap or something, we would stop at the Portland-Columbia Bridge, walk across the bridge at the end of the day, and we'd get chocolate milk at the Port Mart and walk back across. So it was a tradition for me going back to when I was 3 years old, the same age as my son, and now my son comes out with me every week on the hikes. Here's another one with the covered bridge, again with the tracks in the foreground. Now the tracks were much closer to the bridge than they are today, but it doesn't quite look it in these. What ended up happening early on was, originally it was a double track main line, but in 1911 they built the Lackawanna cutoff. So it was no longer needed as a double track there. They traded places with Route 611. 611 used to go up onto the hill out of Portland. They moved it down onto the original railroad right-of-way and moved the railroad closer to the river as a single track. So it's a little bit of a different alignment than what it was traditionally. There's what it looks like today. And you can see the bridge piers were raised after the flood of '55 so that the footbridge would be protected from future flooding. And again, another view of it. I have a whole bunch of them. This is.
Do you have a picture of that house?
What's that?
Do you have a picture of that house, like, turned?
Somewhere I have it turned too, but I don't know if I stuck it in there yet. This is the New Jersey side. This is where we actually started the hikes for so many years. The concrete road still bends around like that right up to the steps to go up onto the new bridge. It's still concrete there, and it's also now the route of the Liberty Water Gap Trail heading up to it. They've striped the one side of the road so that it would be the trail route. This is right where we got out on that first hike, and what we have today. Now this is just looking up a little bit ahead. This is a postcard. I always collected postcards from when I was really little. We picked one up every weekend. And this is a famous postcard that a lot of people had. So this is part of the main line and the cutoff line. So the original Lackawanna main line was completed in 1856. And it originally went from Scranton down to Hampton, New Jersey, where it made connection to the Central Railroad of New Jersey. That was changed in 1868 with the acquisition of the Morrison Essex, and then they shifted in Washington to head east. So part of the original main line through the Water Gap would look like then. And that's what it looks like today. We have so many more trees now than we had even 50 years ago. What's that? Okay. No problem. So this is my group in 1997 on hike number 1. So I got together some of my closest friends. The tall guy in the camouflage is Conrad Blees, who's still a close friend. He's the only one of them in that group that still shows up on the hikes to this day. But we started out and did 20 miles. By the next day, my friend Jenna in the side there, she couldn't even walk around the school, and I had to throw her over my shoulder and carry her between classes. So it was a legendary day. People didn't even think you could walk 20 miles in a day back then. So I knew it was possible, but I was hiking my whole life. So when people were 20 miles, at this point my best day was 63.4 miles. But that was 23 and a half hours nonstop. And there's Jenny, she's here. So we tried to emulate some of the same shots. This was the 20-year anniversary. I could only get 2 people to show up at the beginning. only 2 people wanted to do 20 miles. So, and Jenny was one of them. Now we're looking at the station building in Portland. There's not many stations left. Lackawanna was known for what they call like a pagoda-style station. This one used to be that style, and then they rehabilitated it over the years. And this is before the track was moved. You can see the road going up over the hill there. That's old 611, still there today. But now 611 takes over some of that. Somehow this got out of sequence. So there you can see the pagoda style to the station. I don't know how many of those are still left, but I think there's two. There's definitely two I know of. One of them is Hunlock Creek in PA. But that one doesn't have much more time left. And what it looks like today. You can see they realigned the tracks, and it's a little different. Another one looking at the station. This is looking eastbound. And what that scene looks like today with the port mark. Now you can see the alignment of the station there. It shifts away from the tracks, and it doesn't look quite right. And that's because it is on the old track alignment. More of the Northlandz station. Now some of these here, you can see down at the bottom, C-series photos. Oops. I told Tariq I wasn't going to do this, and now I did it. Let's wait a second for it to come back. So anyway, you get some of these black and white photos with the little name in the bottom. These are from the Steamtown National Historic Site archives, and this one here would have been, I believe, by Watson Bunnell. They had full-time photographers working for the Lackawanna Railroad. They had so much money by the early 1900s that they could afford to keep a full-time photographer on duty. So if there was a liability or something, they would have them go out and take pictures. So you get a lot of these really interesting glass plate negative photographs that were Lackawanna Railroad Company photographs that are very clear from the early 1900s. So Watson Bunnell and William B. Barry are the two photographers that I do the most of their stuff with comparisons. So these are, again, some of those early 1900s images and what they look like today. This one's looking back at the crossing with the covered bridge right there. It's a very different scene today because now it's such a rise to that. Have you seen the railroad crossing? And what that scene looks like today.
Oh, we need a drink.
You need a drink? Here, let me get you a water bottle. Put it in here for you.
I feel it.
You want mine or do you want yours?
I'll feel it.
Here, I've used mine because I can't find yours.
I'll feel it.
Another postcard image of Portland, PA. Now this one here was also colorized but faded. I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we get some better images of that. And once again, you can see how the tracks aligned right out to where the road is today at this point. And another one. Now it's Port Mark. I've been told for some reason these things are going twice sometimes. Then you get the trolley there. The water gap trolley operated until the early 1900s, went all the way over the Godfrey Ridge into Stroudsburg. Guess that.
What is Uncle Cook?
Well, I don't know where Uncle Kirk went. Now this one here was taken after the realignments happened, and you can see an early scene of what became the Port Mark. But more importantly, out behind it, you can see the trestle of what had been the Lehigh and New England Railroad, which came through this area in 1886. And it had a deck truss bridge across the Delaware River just north of where the covered bridge was. There's only an abutment on the PA side, a base of a pier, and about 3 piers on the New Jersey side. Otherwise, you can't even tell there was another bridge there. So the bulk of the Lehigh and New England Railroad was abandoned too far. The bulk of the Lehigh and New England was abandoned October 31st, 1961. So it was very early on. It was still making money. It was an early railroad to be abandoned. If anybody wants any questions at any time, just feel free to spout it out. It's very informative. Probably the most treacherous spot for our group when we first did the hike was crossing over the Delaware Bridge that still stands to this day, but it's abandoned on the other side. When I was little, the bridges over Route 46 were still standing. And there was 2 of them here. There's a reason for that. The bridge that's standing there today was built about 1907. It's a through truss bridge. But originally there was a wooden one there. From 1856 until 1877, there was a wooden deck bridge across the Delaware River there. And that was replaced in 1877 with yes, Ab? It was replaced in 1877 with a through truss bridge, single track, like an oblong shape. That was replaced in 1890 with a through truss bridge and a central truss section of it. And that one was replaced in 1906, but it wasn't torn out. In order to not have interruptions in traffic, they built the new bridges right next to the old one. So the new bridge that's still standing there now, across the Delaware, was built next to the old one, and they sold the old one to a preacher by the name of Darlington, who turned it into a toll bridge. And that remained in place until about 55, when the predecessor to the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission purchased it and tore it down so there would be no competition for their new Portland-Columbia Toll Bridge. So this is actually my photo from 1996. My grandfather took that of my cousin and I standing on top of the bridge when they were getting ready to tear it down. That's what it looks like today. What's that? Yeah.
I actually, a long time ago, worked for New Jersey Transit when they were first looking at restarting service on the cutoff.
Yeah.
And we actually brought the cutoff bridge across the Delaware.
Yeah.
Is that the same, or is there another bridge that you walked?
This is a different bridge. The cutoff bridge was, that replaced this line. This line was 1856. It remained the main line until the cutoff was built in 1911.
So does the lot corner mainline bridge across the Delaware still exist?
The original, the old main line is this one, yeah. Then the later main line is the cutoff, which is called the Delaware Viaduct.
So is the original...
The original one still exists. It's just off the photo in here, and I believe I have that in here. This is the same bridge as they were touring it down. I took that photo in 1996. And again, what it looks like today. Now, there's a little bit of a cut up there on the hill. That was the New York Susquehanna and Western Railroad, which had a junction in Delaware with the Lackawanna. It was originally built in 1876 as the Blairstown Railroad. And because the Lackawanna was originally planning on building through the water gap on the New Jersey side. The problem was, they had a fierce competitor in the Morrison-Essex. The Morrison-Essex by the 1850s had already extended to Hackettstown, but that was the dead end. And they were already surveying their route to go through the water gap. They were planning on becoming the Lackawanna Main Line and being the main route to the anthracite coal. But John I. Blair from the Warren Railroad got his plan approved first. And so Morrison-Essex didn't get to build their line through there, but they didn't give up at that. I understand they purchased the land on the New Jersey side north of the town of Delaware and then up through the water gap so that the Lackawanna couldn't build there. So John I. Blair had to have his surveyors come in and change the route, and that's why it crosses the Delaware right there instead of up above the point of the gap where it was originally planned. They ended up with that land anyway somehow and all these land trade-offs, so Blairstown Railroad was another John I. Blair project. In 1876 that happened, and it was extended east of Blairstown and up to Stroudsburg in 1881 and became the main line of the New York Susquehanna and Western. So there's another major junction that came in right here.
Did the track run where 46 is?
Yes. As you're traveling through where that last photo is, you can actually look over in there and you'll see that grade disappearing. It was blasted away when modern Route 46 was expanded. So there is a little bit of that shelf, and 46 goes up a slight incline. And then where it turns off is just after there's a 7-Eleven that just reopened on that spot where it started to turn away and headed in towards Blairstown. If you were to park over at the wildlife management area, there's a public trail that goes across the private yard there, and you can pick up the railroad grade right through the person's yard and then continue into the wildlife management area. So it is accessible when it turns away from 46. So this is the 1906 through Truss Bridge, and that's my cousin and I on it back in the 90s when I was 15 or 16 there. My grandfather took this, and there it was on my 20-year anniversary hike. Kind of a scary bridge. I did jump off it once, and it was fun, but the next guy that did it died, so I haven't done it since. I don't recommend it. There is a scene from it. I think this one was, I gotta look at my stuff. I think this one was Hang on, I got. Anyway, that's what it looks like there.
That bridge was built double tracked?
It was built double track. The entire line was double track. The entire original main line, double track the entire way through at one point, except for the change water trestle. So after 1868, change water was no longer the main line because they acquired the Morris and Essex. But it was double tracked, including through the Oxford Tunnel. That once was double tracked all through. And then it was only a brief time because locomotives got too big for that. And then they did what they call the gauntlet track.
But Minocachunk was only originally the one tunnel, right?
Originally from 1856 until 1872-ish, I think.
And then they built the second.
They built the second tunnel, yes. And so for a brief time, everything was double tracked on the entire thing, except for...
The Oxford Tunnel was side-by-side double tracked?
it was at one time.
Really?
Yeah, according to Lowenthal and Greenberg's Lackawanna Railroad in Northwest New Jersey, yes, it was double tracked all the way through Oxford at one time. Locomotives got too big. It went from a single track to a switch single track to a double track, then to a gauntlet track, and then back to a switch single track to a single track in its existence. And this is kind of a cool one here. I try to get them as exact as I can, but it's not always possible. So, and we go down into the town of Delaware, which was a major station stop. This is another one. This one's a William B. Barry Jr. photograph of it, and what that looks like today. The station used to stand right over in here. And there's a lot of cool stuff around there. There's the churches and stuff. And here you have Clarence Street over here. You can see the bridge in the background. Now that survived until the 1990s also, but they had to take it out because buses couldn't get underneath it. So the little town of Delaware, I found out, was of personal interest. There I am standing on the cut on the NYS&W where it first breaks off. And we used to stop when I was in high school and try to climb up all those cliffs, which was insane because it's all shale. And there I am on my 20-year anniversary hike. Now the reason I'm wearing this tuxedo is kind of another little story too. So my grandfather was a barbershop chorus singer for 30 years. And he was with the 100 Harmonizers. So he was with them when they reached their peak and actually went to the international competition, and they wore these red and white tuxedos. So I went to all these thrift stores. They probably only paid about $12 for everything I'm wearing there. But they wore these tuxedos, and I said for my 20-year anniversary hike, I want to have the same tuxedo my grandfather wore with his chorus. Ev, have a little quieter, okay? So the night before hike number 1, I went out with my grandfather to Honesdale, PA, and watched his chorus perform, and they were wearing these tuxedos. So I've always had, like, when I go through the pictures of hike 1, and right at the beginning of it, I got a picture of this chorus he's singing with, where they're all wearing these tuxedos. So I thought he would get a kick out of it, seeing that I got this tuxedo on this hike. So that was the story behind it. And there's the rock cut. That's my friend Rob climbing it. And what the same spot looks like now.
That's by Gray's where it
Yeah,
crosses over to the bridge?
That's right past that.
46 is there on your left.
Yeah, you can see 46. He blasted away. It was a perfect cut, but Gray ended up blasting away some of the stuff on there. Now it's kind of just, it looks like a shelf. But it was a cut in there until... Ev, not so loud, okay? And then here we got another one. This is, I forget if this one's Bundle or Barry. This is Delaware, New Jersey, and the original grade crossing in town was shifted from the original location to a spot just a little to the north. Now what's really interesting to this, for me, is the fact that my family used to own this, and I didn't know it for years. I had been hiking this for 20 years when I found out that John I. Blair purchased this property from Henry Albertson on his deathbed. And Henry Albertson was my 5 times great-grandfather. So,
Albertson's trucking.
I believe I'm related to him, distantly. But Henry Albertson owned the house that was on top of that hill there, which was called Blair's Knob in the years later. But Henry Albertson dates back to, they came to the Delaware, New Jersey area before the town really grew. It was just a few families. And Albertson's Ferry was there first. It had different names after a few other years, but George Washington actually commandeered that ferry from Nicholas Albertson, who I believe was my 7th times great-grandfather. And it's in his journals, Washington took my ferry. It's very, very phonetic Dutch, W-A-S-H-E-N-T-E-N. So there was a ferry there, and Washington crossed the Delaware there too, but he's not as famous for that. He was apparently looking for the outlaw Moody and had dinner in Mount Bethel, PA, crossed over the ferry. So anyway, this property was my family's, and that's what it looks like today. Sadly, they got rid of the station. This one is also Delaware, New Jersey. One of Henry Albertson and his brother each had houses up on the hills, and the other one, Cornelius, had the house over beyond here. Did we skip one there? Yeah, it went too fast. So that's the same scene there. If you were to walk across into the grass, you could still find some railroad ties in that grass.
Hunter's Lodge?
Hunter's Lodge is there, yes. And what that looks like today. These can be tough to figure out because you're always looking for anchor points to the past. What was there, what's here now, and it's a lot of times what I'll try to do is I can see that Bundle and Barry, they would have had a tripod to get these clear pictures. So what they would do is they'd be in the same spot and they just spin around. And I'll find these spots and see a series of pictures and say, okay, Bundle or Barry took this picture here, I'll spin around and say, ah, that's it. Find the location and then try to get that same image. Same thing with this one here. Now here you got WBBR, so that's William B. Barry Jr. was the photographer on this one. And as I said, the road was shifted around to a grade crossing a little further up. I know for a fact that this is the exact location because of some of the buildings on the other side. I figured out where the footprint of the station was based on other photos, and then I could figure out other ones from there. Now here's a nice colorized postcard image of the station in Delaware. This was, again, it was a small town. It became a more important town unexpectedly when Blair had to change his plans and cross the Delaware at that location. So this made it the last New Jersey stop, so it became a much more substantial place. And of course they didn't have color photos back then, and a lot of you have probably already seen these kind of pictures online. Well, they didn't have color pictures. What they did was they painted them. They would take a print and they'd send it to Germany typically, and German painters would colorize them through painting, then they'd be mass produced and distributed. When you see pictures like this though, they would sometimes take artistic license, add people to them, add vehicles to them. And that's why sometimes you'll see the vehicles at a scale, people at a scale. You might see a model of a train or a type of car that was not even available in the United States. What's that at? Don't run too far, okay?
Clouds, they had clouds in the sky.
And they were probably painted clouds, in all likelihood. They would add a lot of that stuff. They would take daytime photos and turn them into nighttime photos and put the moon in there. We see a lot of that too. Here we're looking at downtown Delaware, New Jersey. When I did a Then and Now of This, it was kind of more recently, Ev and I were out there and we met the owner of the building on the left. And I didn't know this. It was kind of a hotel, but it was also the brothel, he tells me. And you can see the station in the background in this one, looking up the main street. On the right side, you have the oldest road. You got Zeke's place is down by Belvedere, and Mike Zekas owns it, and that was his parents.
Yes.
Owned that, and Mike Zekas is a really nice guy. He actually hunts one of the trails I maintain, and so we go in there on my lunch breaks sometimes to work. So there's Hot Dog Johnny's today. So this is in Buttsville. And that garage building is still there, so it's a nice scene with a train approaching. And that's what it looks like today. So there's like a tennis court built on top of it, and then they had a Superfund site on part of it, so they completely excavated the right-of-way a few years ago. This one is, I don't remember if this was a Bundle or Barry one, but this is looking up. They had steps up to the to the thing here from what's now the Buttsville Road, and now it's Mill Street. They shifted the road around because of the nearby Lehigh and Hudson River Railway used to have a grade crossing over there, but there were too many bad accidents at that, so they cut it off. Now Mill Street kind of becomes Buttsville Road. But that's that same scene there. This is the grade crossing. You can see the cemetery on the left-hand side. The church is out of the frame there, but this is Green Pond Road crossing. Green Pond is the original name for Mountain Lake, and that's why it's called Green Pond Road. And what that looks like today. So the right-of-way there is not on public land yet, but it is in the process of being acquired right now. So it's another piece. The Warren Highlands plan is going to come through some of this because Peak West Wildlife Management Area owns a lot of the property adjacent to the cemetery, and it's going to cut to the north through that property. We're going to use some of the Lackawanna right-of-way between Oxford and Buttsville as part of that trail plan. So we've already acquired the land next to what was Walt's Mini Mart at 31 and 46 as a county, and the state already owns on the opposite side of the road. So they just got to get this little piece through to the cemetery, and the land adjacent to the cemetery is already state land. So that will hopefully get us a through route for our cross-county trail. Here we are looking down in Buttsville across what is now Route 46, and you can see the through-style truss bridge over there in the distance before the grade crossing was cut off.
That's before they demolished the hotel.
Yep. And then what that looks like today. It's surprising that you still have a double intersection with 46 there. They didn't cut it off to just one. But I don't think there's very good line of sight from either one of them, so it's a nightmare nobody wants to really address. And there we're looking now westbound at the double track right of way at Green Pond Road again, and what that looks like today. So much of this line really still is quite walkable or bikeable, like this section here. It's pretty well used by ATVs to keep it open. I'm not opposed to ATVs using it, because if we haven't had them on it, we wouldn't be able to get through it. And now, since they've been pushing the ATVs out in Peak West Wildlife Management Area, it's getting worse and worse to be able to even walk through. We're fighting through weeds, and there's always branches over it. So it's an issue. They don't want to hire more people to maintain these rights-of-way, but they are kicking them out. So it's a tough situation. This is another scene with Green Pond Road, looking down. What's this? Excuse me a moment, make sure nobody's lost here. Okay, and
So an accident at that corner a few months ago.
there's a lot of accidents there. It's a bad line of sight, and people end up going way too fast.
Yeah.
I think I put this in too many times. Oh, there's another one on Green Pond Road. It's cool that they have them at so many different angles, just because of the, you can see the glass plate negatives were getting a little messed up over the years. Sorry. People always talk about Buttsville being the naughtiest name in the state of New Jersey. And nobody ever talks about Spanktown over by Raleigh. Like, come on. You see these lists of weirdest town names in the country, and it's like, Buttsville, New Jersey. Like, we have Spanktown. Clearly they don't know Jersey.
Intercourse, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania's got plenty of other ones, so they've got Bird in hand. So this is another Buttsville one. And the same scene. I love that the same house is right there. So this is another one from the Lowenthal and Greenberg's book showing the crossing. And there we all are meandering across it. There was a time when I was trying to keep people out of these pictures, and I hate putting watermarks up. You know, like Metro Trail's right in the corner. I'm like, I don't want to do that. For one, it takes a lot of time. But if I put people in the modern pictures, I'm still showing what the place looks like. And I'm also showing people that you can go do this. You can go walk this line. It's really cool. It's a fun time. it really puts it in perspective. It's like, this is doable. It's not just a picture of the scene. I can go walk this. I like that too. And I think having my friends in the pictures is much better than a watermark. So now my son ends up in all of them. So this one here, I think I got this one from Henry Jewell also. This is the crossing of Route 46, the deck girder bridge. If you're standing at the corner of 31 looking over at where the bridge site was. So neither of the abutments are there. It's completely decimated, and there's a large parking area on the right. So if you want to go and walk this right of way, go to 31 and 46, turn right on 46, giant lot right there. You can follow the ATV path right up onto the 3-arch P-Quest viaduct, which is a really nice walk through wildlife management area. And there's what that looks like today.
Do you know when they tore that down?
I think it was pretty shortly after it was abandoned. I think it was after 1970.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, I wasn't born yet, so. But I don't know exactly when all of it was taken down. Here's another one of my very old ones. There's my brother in a Star Trek uniform. So that was when Walt's Mini Mart was still there, and you had some cheap gas. And you know, I'm just randomly taking pictures. You never know what you're going to have and what it's going to look like now. And now it's all abandoned, and it's been abandoned for years. So it's kind of neat to see how things are decaying. 20 years later, it's a mess, and I can't believe nothing's gone in there yet. Right at that corner, too. You'd think it would be a cash cow. Here we have the Route 31 bridge. So Route 31 was originally Route 30. It was an earlier highway plan. You could see the 3-arch P-Quest viaduct on the far left, and this bridge dates to some of the earlier days of that. It didn't extend to Buttsville initially. The highway was a dead end in Washington for a little while. They didn't have a bridge in place under the Lackawanna in Washington, so it dead ended there for a bit. But you can see the Lehigh and Hudson River Railway just in the foreground, right over here. I've got to remember to bring my laser pointer next time. So Route 30 was changed to Route 69 because there was already a Route 30 in South Jersey, and they didn't want to have confusion with that. But then they had the problem with everybody stealing all the signs, so they had to change it to 31. Anyway, so there's that scene today. Or not today, but it's clearly a colder day. Now this one is looking from the corner of 31. You're looking out 31 at that, what's now that dead mini mart area. And you can see the railroad grade right up there on the hillside, totally clear on a winter day. And what that looks like now. So where the billboard is in there was, that was deeded to Warren County so that we would have a right-of-way to get up to the railroad grade. This has been a nightmare of a problem with trying to get the trail through. We're trying to get a trail across the county. It's going to be about 60 miles long when it's done. And it will follow the railroad bed for just a little bit in here. But they added no pedestrian signs here to this crossing. And so we've had to have studies done. You got all this galvanized rail, you got no walkway. They're talking about creating some kind of outlandish walkway over here in order to get us across at the crosswalk that they're going to create. But that's what's going on there.
Hey, Mike.
Yes?
Is it possible that like the one guy said that that bridge that's right here to the right, that isn't here anymore, that was still there? I remember that bridge too. And
It might have been there a little while
in
later.
88. And
It was not there in 88.
are you sure?
Oh yeah, because I was walking both the Lehigh and Hudson. Well, Lehigh and Hudson was still there in 86. And I was walking that, and I was 6 years old.
And it wasn't there.
And this bridge was not there in 88, definitely not.
But do you think that just the cement, just this, not the bridge, but just the side?
I don't think even that was there, because we always parked there to hike this. That was always the lot my grandfather and I used.
My best guess is the 70s, because I lived in Belvedere and worked at the Mars candy factory and drove that every day.
Yeah.
And I remember going under that. And
Yeah.
I think sometime in the 70s they took it.
I probably would have been. If not, it would have had to been like by the early 80s, but I started hiking with my grandfather when I was 3, and I remember the stuff pretty clearly. and it was already gone for quite a while, and we were using those same ATV paths. Here's one of them. Now, this road you're seeing going across here, this is a William Barry photograph. This was the original grade crossing where 46 is now. And it came up and over. And I've never seen a picture of the station that would have been there, the Buttsville station for the Lackawanna. There's just no photos I've ever seen of it. But obviously I can't get up to that grade now, but that's about where that would have been. So, now this was looking from the slope. Now you can see in the distance, there's the 3 Yards Peak West Viaduct. If I went by what Lowenthal and Greenberg's book said, it said that the bridge over there was replaced by a 3 Yards concrete span. The problem is, when the concrete was done, this was such a major double-track main line, and the cutoff wasn't complete yet. Even at that, it was too busy. When they replaced the ones over the Delaware, they had to build a bridge next to it to not have an interruption in service. And for such a short span, they wouldn't have replaced that bridge. This photo shows that the underside has already been redone with concrete. So I believe that 3-yard span, same seam, is the same one. I believe it's actually got stone under it. So this looks like it's before the concreting was complete. The underside of the arch is done there. I think that they elevated it when Route 6 was developed. And this is kind of neat too. You got a little bit of a walkway up here. I guess that would have been where there would have been a station stop. But no, where is that the road? It could be the road. Middle arch isn't done there yet. So that's the same area. And here we have another one where you can see the underside is already redone, and this one also with concrete. This is the current Route 31 bridge. And you can see a corner of the old railroad bridge right there. So I think it's very likely that the stone bridge is still underneath all of that concrete, because they would not have had an interruption in service that would have lasted long enough to completely rebuild a bridge from stone to concrete there. So there it shows the original stone look of it. It's a rare example of when two railroads cross over the same river at the exact same spot. Lehigh and Hudson River Railway was completed through also in 1886. Went all the way from Belvedere off of the Belldale line to Maybrook, New York, and that was abandoned exactly 100 years later. And that through girder bridge is still there, although they've removed a whole lot of the decking to keep the ATVs from going across. It mostly goes to Peak West Wildlife Management Area, and that right-of-way is trail all the way from there to Townsbury. Then there's a missing section, and it's trail all the way from Great Meadows to, let's see, the township just purchased some sections. It pretty much goes up into Greene Township in Sussex County with one little missing piece. And that's what that looks like today. Now, if you look back, it looks like they raised it. And I think that that raising coincides with the construction of the Route 6, which became 46. So this one was Dennis Esminger's photo of the Lehigh and Hudson, taken from the Route 31 bridge. And this would have been towards the end of it, 1980s. And that's the same scene today. I can't believe how much it's grown in since '86. Another older photo with the thing. You can see the other arches again have been done up with concrete underneath. Now this is an interesting spot. And you can see to the right here it starts to widen. There's a reason for that. Most people don't know about it. This was a junction site right here. But it had already been long out of service by the time this was here. This was called the Lehigh and Oxford. Right where the Route 31 bridge is today, the Lehigh and Oxford served the iron mining interests up in the north side of Oxford by passing through along a very small creek up through Buttsville. The abutments to the bridge that carry that over the Buttsville Road are still there. It cut up across East Quarry Road and then up into what's now the Edison Quarry area. And that was in use until Edison built his own Powhatan Railroad, they called it. They connected with the Lackawanna in Oxford and then went over what's now the Quarry Access Road and out to the quarry that way.
There's a picture of that junction. I have it somewhere.
a picture of the
Of
junction with the
junction
Lehigh and
with
Oxford?
With the Oxford running in, that's where the frog is. Where they come
Really?
together, yeah.
I'd love to see that.
I know, and I'll have to find it, but I have it.
I have the survey maps of the Lehigh and Oxford that I got from my grandfather, but I've never seen any active pictures of the Lehigh and Oxford except for there's one picture looking over the rails and down into Buttsville that I've seen. But other than that, there's nothing else I've ever seen that features it. Oh, sure thing. Thank you. This is an old house that used to stand outside of Oxford. We've always gone to abandoned houses and stuff since I was little. My grandfather was a land surveyor, so we were always out on weird vacant properties and stuff. And then this one here, I think it got burned down as a fire drill exercise. It's hard to even tell where this was, but this is another one I like to show. This shows the rate of succession with plants and trees growing. These trees are actually already bigger. This is only 2 years ago. Here's where the tracks used to go under Pequest Road as you're heading into Oxford. Now my friends obviously are looking very tired by this point. This is back on hike number 1. This has also gotten quite a bit more grown in.
Excuse me.
And we always stop at the Busy Bee in Oxford, and we still do that too. Everybody hanging out at the Busy Bee. And what that looks like now. Here we have this, this is the rolling mill as you're heading into Oxford on the main line. So in the 1990s, they took the right-of-way. It used to be Lower Denmark Road, used to come out into Route 31 next to Oxford A1 Tire there. And they cut that off and built the new road on top of the right-of-way out into Oxford proper, out towards where the rolling mill is there. So that's now all road, and it looks like this. But that section of the road is the right-of-way. If you were to climb down, the Furnace Brook passes under the right-of-way there. It is the original Stone Arch Bridge that's carrying that road, to carry the railroad. It's one of the nicer examples of the old stone structures on it. This is the original crossing of Lower Denmark Road, heading in from where's now Route 31 in Oxford. And that's what that looks like. Now the right-of-way over in here has been sort of annexed into different properties. There was an opportunity to buy it, and somehow we missed out on it to get the through right-of-way. From the end of Lower Denmark Road, it's the only section of the entire Lackawanna Old Main Line that has been formally developed as a trail. It is a paved trail from the end of Lower Denmark Road out to Pequest Road. I was told that that was done because of the new development on Pequest Road, and there was an issue with busing, and they needed to have a safe route for people to walk to school. So they didn't have permits, and they paved the trail to go over the wildlife management property. But that is, it's got benches, it's got trash cans, it's the only section of the entire right-of-way that has been formalized as a trail. This one's a little bright, but that shows the crossing from a little further back. And that's the same scene today. When I started leading the hikes, we could walk right through the whole thing. It was still totally clear and as an ATV path right on through it. But we've lost so much, even in 28 years, that you can't really get into it. Old Oxford Station, another pagoda-style station, which is now long gone, but part of the concrete later platform behind it is still there. That's the scene. And this is another later one, looks like an F unit coming through. The station is already abandoned by this point. It's down to a single track. And that's what that looks like. This was a fan trip here. I can't remember the details on this one. I don't think I got any notes I can read on there. There's a couple of the guys in this, and a couple of them that were kids have commented. You can actually go onto the Facebook page. If you go onto the page and you click on the little dots and go to search, you can put Oxford Station in. You get all the information I have on each one of these things. It's all in there. And it's neat. Some of the people that are standing in this photo have actually commented on the thing. And I engaging with people like that experience these days specifically.
It's coming to the end of those railroad days for the condition of that train.
Well, it has a little bit of rust to it. Those are always a handsome looking train. It's my dad's favorite kind of train is the F units. Ev loves those too. Ev's favorite is the GG1, honestly. You'd think it would be a steam one, but he just loves GG1s. There's another nice one that shows some of the rolling mill in the old station. This is looking down probably after 31 was already developed. And you can see today, there's old Lower Denmark Road. It's still got the pavement in there even though it's blocked off, but it's the same spot. Another one of the old Oxford Station, and this is from the Warren County Historical Society book. And what that scene looks like now. In the background you have West Oxford Mountain, you have County House Mountain. The dip in it is Van Ness Gap. Now just before this location, prior to the completion of the Oxford Tunnel in 1862, I did it again. Prior to the completion of the Oxford Tunnel in 1862, as I've said, the line went in 1856. So while the tunnel was being built, they built a temporary track that circumnavigated these mountains and passed through Van Ness Gap over top of the tunnel and then made its way back on the south side in Washington Township. So even though the line has been abandoned since 1862, you can still find remnants of that, and it's really interesting to trace. Another one of the Oxford Station. So the original line broke off. The original Oxford Station was over closer to the Oxford Furnace. Another interesting spot. The Oxford Furnace is a very historic spot, and they really needed to get the ore from there. It was the first mined iron furnace in New Jersey. It was the third mined iron furnace in the country. Of course, they had bog iron and stuff in South Jersey, but the Oxford Furnace was the first one outside of Connecticut to come into use. And it was also the first of the hot blast furnaces built in 1741. So it was still a heavy production area, and they needed the railroad there. Oxford was originally just called Oxford Furnace. What we today call Hazen, outside of Belvedere, where 519 crosses over and goes in. The church there, the Presbyterian church, is called the Old Oxford Church. That's because that was Oxford. This area was named Oxford Furnace because it was close to Oxford. The area in Upper Oxford was called Pedingerville. So this area kind of stole the name Oxford from what we now call Hazen. So it's just
Hazen was the center of Oxford Township.
What's that?
Hazen was the center of Oxford Township.
Yeah, and it was...
At that time, Belvedere didn't exist. Belvedere was Oxford.
Yep, it was
Oxford
all
went all the way to Delaware.
Yeah, so it kind of stole the name from that settlement. It was the Old Oxford Church, but now it's still called that. It's not Oxford anymore. So it's another one of those nice, odd spots. Hampton is my favorite one for that story, but we'll get to that. Some more of it at the old station in Oxford. This is about the time in the hike where everybody's getting all tired and they start quitting. So we might start with, I've had up to 60 people on this hike, and then we'll finish like 5 of us from here on out.
So where do they go?
They, in these days you can Uber out.
Oh yeah, today, but what about, back then? What did you do?
Back then, they'd call their moms and stuff. Sometimes we'd have them, they'd sit and wait. They'd go in and they'd sit at the Busy Bee and pig out.
Or some people will have a car like halfway.
We would actually park cars halfway. We planned it at the beginning. It's easier now than ever for people to do this and just peace out.
Yeah.
So you'd think I'd be getting more people to come out than ever, but no. There we go, some more Oxford. There's a nice colorized one of the station. I love that pagoda style look. There's the Oxford Tunnel back. This is on hike number 2. Wow. The neat thing with this is those wooden things, there used to be doors on the tunnel. And they were during the World Wars, they'd keep guards at the tunnel to keep people from damaging it. But we used to walk through it, and even back when I was in high school, the water still came to right here. So it was quite an adventure trying to get through the tunnel, and the silt in it was absolutely horrific. You'd go in from this side, and this This is on another William B. Barry Jr. photograph, and the reason this one would have been taken is likely because after a recent flood they had, and this is 1922, they had a new culvert had been put in. It's concrete. After William Truesdale took over as president of the Lackawanna Railroad shortly after 1900, John I. Blair died in 1899. Truesdale came in. Concrete was this new amazing thing. So you saw Truesdale replacing all the original stone structures on the old main line with concrete, and eventually his great achievement was the cutoffs, of which there were two major ones and lots of little ones. There was the Halstead cutoff in PA and the New Jersey cutoff between Slateford and Lincoln-Packham area. So the building you see to the right, though, was only torn down a few years ago. And you can tell by the window on the top, that wasn't just a regular house, that was a Baptist church that had been abandoned as a church and sold off to private interests. Around the same time, there was a lot of Baptist churches abandoned, even around this area. Are a lot of you from the Flemington area? Well, if you were to travel out Route 12, there's an equipment place called Colmer, just off of 12. This building looks almost identical to that, Baptist church. There's a whole lot of Baptist churches abandoned, and one of the reasons that we've guessed that they might have been abandoned around that time was because at the time that denomination was still kind of in support of slavery, so they kind of just might have moved out around that time, and either other denominations took the churches over, or the churches were turned into other types of things. In this case, that house, and probably at the time this photo was taken, was the home of my great-grandmother. Her name was Gladys Evans. What her real last name was Snyder. She lived as a boarder with the Evans family that lived in this house. Mr. Evans was the tunnel keeper for the Minunka-Chunk Tunnel. At some point, the tunnel keeper moved from a house that was just down the slope from that. I'm assuming probably after a major flood in 1913 damaged it. And then they made this into the tunnel keeper's house. So my great-grandmother lived as a boarder with the Evans family here. And when my great-grandfather started dating her, it was kind of forbidden because she came from a broken family living as a boarder in this house. So my great-grandfather was disowned and moved to Hampton, New Jersey, and until my grandfather was born and his family. Eventually my great-grandmother passed away, and then my great-grandfather and his father started talking again. But that's
what's your location here? Are you east of Delaware?
This is just east of the town of Delaware, but
By
not quite
Smitty's Liquor,
Ramseyburg.
not that far?
Not quite Ramseyburg. If you were to go, you're going 46. Do you know where Marshall's Fruit Stand is?
Yes, sir.
Marshall's Fruit Stand is on your left. You make the right, and then an immediate left. And then that road travels up into the town of Delaware. This house used to stand at the creek crossing down at a little bit of a gully.
Okay.
And they got together because directly across the street, there's now a little one-story house there. That was my great-grandfather's sawmill. His name was Edwin Allen, and he followed in his father's footsteps. George Prawl Allen was my great-grandfather. Edwin Allen's father was Michael Klein Allen, and he had a portable sawmill, so he was involved in the transportation history of this area going way back as well. When the Morris Canal was being built over in Port Colden, they built basins there at the base of Incline Plane number 6 West and right in the middle of town. Michael Klein Allen traveled to Port Colden, purchased a piece of property, and was using his portable sawmill to make the boards for canal boats and other stuff that was needed for the construction of the Morris Canal. But he lived right over here. So there's a lot of interesting family history I've found through this and that's what the site looks like now. That I was already interested in this. I was already doing these presentations before I even knew a lot of this family history. It just happens to come out through the research. So, this is another one stepping a little farther back. Now remember, Route 46 wasn't there yet. And in fact, when that was built, it was like Route 6. This was the main road through, so you had the advertisements and everything. 46 today is right on the other side of this. And there's a little place that used to be a World's Fair place. It looks like a Dixie cup, but it's now a private house.
It used to be called Margie's Cup. I
Yep.
thought there was a child.
That's right across from this, on the other side of the right-of-way. And there's a rock cut right up in here that back in the day, my family would hide in the rock and jump out and scare people walking by. So we go to the next one. And that's the same scene today. Now off the photo here, the driveway on your right was the entrance to the sawmill. And on the near side of the bridge was my family's house. It's a large 2.5-story, very nice house. And then there's a Cape Cod house right next to that. In his retirement, my great-great-grandfather, Edwin Allen, built the second house. So, a lot of history there too. Now this one from the same series, also by Barry, you get the photo shows another culvert made of concrete, probably done about the same time, and I struggled for a while trying to figure out where some of these shots were taken. But I found a farm lane over there and ran over to check it out one day, and saw the shape of the mountains was just about right, and from there I was able to figure out a whole bunch of them by just spinning around like I described before. So that's the same scene today. And this one here, he spun around and looked down to the Delaware River, this might have been a ferry landing at one time. And the same scene today. Once again, we're looking in the other direction. This area is known as Ramseyburg. Tummy hurts. Why don't you have some more of your food? Would you like some more water? I have it right here. No? And the same scene today.
Let's go look at trains.
You can go look at the trains if you want. Now this is one of them I took years ago on one of my early hikes. This is the Ramseyburg homestead. Now, this dates back to the 1700s, back in their early highways in the area. The reason this building is significant to the railroad is it used to sit exactly where the Lackawanna Railroad sits now. The railroad paid to move it across the street. Don't be so loud, okay? The railroad paid to move this across the street. And Knowlton Township Historical Society has been the recipient of some grants from the state and from the Municipal and Charitable Conservancy Trust in Warren County to restore this building. And now they do some great programs there. It's an absolutely wonderful place to visit, and there's some really great river access right there. So, fortunately, that was preserved. It's on wildlife management area, but the township has a lease on it.
Was that a train stop when it was a resort?
It wasn't, and I don't know if there was ever a flag stop there, but there might have been at one time. The railroad sat at a higher grade than the road at that point. So it was quite a bit higher, even early on. There was originally a stone culvert at that site that was replaced by a concrete abutments and a deck girder bridge under Truesdale. But it was so high up above it, they probably didn't have anything other than something short-lived. But there might have been a flag stop early on. I don't even know if we have records of that.
I thought I read that was the railroad ended Ramseyburg because the stop ended up being in the town of Delaware, and Ramseyburg was there before the railroad was ever there, and that was going to be the town. That was the mill for everything. And everybody was going to come then when Blair made the crossing up there, everybody left Ramseyburg.
Pretty much, and that story echoes across the country. But there's other stories like that on this line too. And you're right, Ramseyburg was there. It was kind of there earlier, but there was interspersed. There were a few homes and families. Like my family was there in 1777. We know that, and a little earlier. They settled up there actually. We know they were there in 1777 because of Nicholas Albertson's journals. But the Albertsons actually started as millwrights on the Musconetcong River.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt, yeah.
But they would have been more
the railroad
interspersed.
changed everything for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ruined the canals.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So this one here, I've included this one because this is a picture from hike number 1 with me. But I don't even realize how much the trees have grown in until I really look back. So this was in 1997, and that's the same spot now. So these trees have grown that much. I always like to bring up the fact that New Jersey and Pennsylvania, basically the whole mid-Atlantic, was completely denuded of trees. You'll see in all the old pictures there's no trees anywhere. New Jersey is now 44% forest. It actually ranks 25th out of 50 states for the most forests. Even though they're the most densely populated state in the United States. Consider that 25% of the entire population of New Jersey lives in Camden. Then consider that another 25% of the entire state lives in Newark and the immediately adjacent municipalities. So there's 50% of the whole state right there in two very close areas. And then another 25% is all concentrated in short areas along the Parkway, along the Turnpike. So if you look at a concentration map, you can see how the 44% forest really fits. So anyway, this goes to show how much it's grown in, even since I was 17.
Yeah, but
Is the
problem
culvert
is
in
that the trees are growing faster because of the carbon dioxide, which means the wood isn't as strong.
The wood is actually horrible quality, and you're right about that. If you were to cut these trees down and you look at the grains in it, and this is why every time I see an old house demolished, like there's one of them right down the road from here in South Branch Wildlife Management Area that's on the demolition list. It's an old house from at least the 1870s. It's located on the 1874 Atlas of Hunterdon County, so we know it's old. The timbers in that building are going to be made of very fine-grained wood. It could be American chestnut. And the wood that you get now, even farmed trees, are going to be not nearly the quality, because those grains are going to be very far apart. Those trees had very fast-growing years. So all the wood, if you're going to demolish a house, I argue that every one of those timbers should be salvaged, because you're never going to have wood that's that powerful again. And most of this is junk wood too. The ones on the left side are all Ailanthus altissima, better known as tree of heaven. It's a highly invasive species that inhibits the growth of other native species by putting toxins into the ground. So sometimes they call them Chinese sumac. They're not, but they're not a sumac at all. It's a totally different species. Not even related to sumacs. The sumacs are very good. Even poison sumac isn't even in the sumac family. It's a toxicodendron.
What's the structures in the center of that last picture? Is that a culvert goes under there?
This is a cell tower access road that has been piled up on top of the original right-of-way. So the right-of-way is actually kind of below and off to the left here. I wonder if you can see it in the previous one. It's actually just slightly below us here, and this lane was built in the 1990s to access the cell tower. So this is on the right-of-way, and the right-of-way starts to come out from under it over there. So you're where the tracks would have been, or at least where one of the tracks would have been, and most of it's covered over. It just
so at your back here is the Ramseyburg Road?
The Ramseyburg Road is further behind me to my back, yes. And you're looking up towards Delaware. You can actually see, I think you can see some of the tombstones of the Ramseyburg Cemetery right there. So that's about where that is. Now this is the deconstruction at Ramseyburg of the original culvert. This is from, this photo is from Lowenthal and Greenberg's Lackawanna Railroad in northwest New Jersey. My grandfather got me the copy of that book when I was 8 years old. And it's still one of my favorite books. It's basically the Bible to this old line. And absolutely amazing thing. And this was when William Truesdale was having the original structures of stone removed. The only ones that still remained, or still remain today, are some of the creek underpasses that are original stone. The ones that are road underpasses, the last one of them was in Hampton, and that one was demolished around 2005, unfortunately. It was the Lackawanna Avenue culvert in Hampton. And what that scene looks like today. Not even a remnant of the bridge. Another one, we're always doing some fun things. One of the things we always done since the first hike was, this is actually from hike 2. There's a shale slope. We called it the Shrub of Might, and we wouldn't let anybody continue on until they run up the slope and touch this tiny shrub. So 20 years later, we were still doing the same thing, and it's quite a silly thing. So it's not all about history. Sometimes we're just doing fun, silly things, and like I said, it's a party that lasts for 15 to 20 months. Then we're moving forward a little bit here. This one is a Lackawanna collection thing, and I believe I got this one from Bob Bars, who is a great historian on the Lackawanna Railroad, and this is getting to the junction at Menunkachunk. So the Belvedere Delaware Railroad was first established to the south in Trenton in the 1850s, early 1850s. By 1851, it reached Lambertville, and they just kept on pushing north. Belvedere Delaware Railroad was purchased by the Pennsylvania Railroad, which was the largest railroad in the world at one time, and it had its junction with the Lackawanna at Menunkachunk. So the trackage to the far left here is the Pennsylvania Railroad, and you'll have a little PRR thing on the left side there, showing where their end of trackage was. And I guess they had some trackage rights to get up into the Poconos from there. And of course, you had a tower site, but this area was prone to flooding even back then. A stream called Catherine's Run was utilized for some of the cut work on the east portal of the Menunkachunk Tunnel, and it would, during flood times, pass through the tunnel and wreak havoc on this entire area. So that's what this area looked like a couple of years ago. This area has now been completely decimated and washed out into Route 46. And you have the beginning of this washout here. From when I was 16 up until a few years ago, I used to maintain the culverts up there myself, and kept them flowing pretty well, but nothing was going to stop what happened 2 years ago to completely destroy the area. So flooding is nothing new for the area. This is a flood scene from a major storm that hit the area in 1913. Now the yard area at Menunkachunk, at the west portal of the tunnel, there used to be a station right there. There was the tower which is falling in. They did fill in some of that again, but the yard just shrank as you look at historic photos over the years, because it just kept getting washed out. And you're looking at the Belvedere Delaware line going off in that direction. The Belle Del didn't initially connect with the Lackawanna either. It ended in Belvedere for several years, and they operated a coach service between Belvedere and Menunkachunk. And then it was actually... Yes, Ev? Your water is right over here, Ev. Here you go. Here you go. Are you thirsty? So, then it didn't even connect for a few years. It was at a lower grade because the Lackawanna was broad gauge. It did that, I guess, to mimic the Erie, as I understand. And the Pennsylvania Railroad was standard gauge. Eventually the connection was made when they switched to the same gauge. Now this was a tough one to get, but I had to hang from the side of the slope to get that. But that's the same scene today. You want me to take this back? So the railroad right-of-way from this point, Gary Gray did own a section of it. I don't know what the status of it is right now up until you get to Menunkachunk. But from a point just north of Menunkachunk, near the Knowlton and White Township boundary, and then all the way to Bridgeville is State Park Service property, and it's under the jurisdiction of Jenny Jump State Forest. The land surrounding it is Beaverbrook Wildlife Management Area. So because it was considered for recreational purposes, they kept the railroad right-of-way in the park ownership, surrounding land and wildlife management. Here's a scene at the Menunkachunk Station. You can see the Belle Del line on the right. The station and the alignments here changed quite a lot over the years. In some of the historic photos, you'll see the station building to the right of the tunnel. Other times, the station and platform were right between the two tunnel portals. I think this one's really interesting because you can see the wood, how it was all laid out for the platform. It looks almost haphazard, but just really nicely fitted. There was a lot of attention to detail. Nobody had cars back when this was taken, so they had to make it nice. And then what that scene looked like the year before it washed out 2 years ago. Here we have an F unit coming through the tunnel. You have this contraption you see overhead with what looks like hairs coming down. That's called a telltale. So somebody riding on the top of the train wouldn't be bumping their head. They know to watch out. You got overhead clearance issues coming up. There aren't many telltales left. I only know of a couple of them. In Warren County, there is only one remaining on the Lehigh and Hudson River Railway over near Townsbury. And then there's another one on that same line over where it passes under the Lackawanna Cutoff. Other than that, I never see these things anywhere. But this is after the original eastbound track was abandoned. I believe 1940s here. And then what that scene looks like now, or what it looked like a couple years ago again. This is another one looking down on the top of the station platform between the two tunnels, and then out at how extensive the Bell Del line is. If you were to walk up onto that today, you can get on it a little further down by what used to be King Cole Grove. That looks like it's just a tiny single track right-of-way going up in that area. Every bit of that has washed down. Not so much of that in recent years, but it's still going to happen eventually. I had posted a YouTube video about how this is going to be a major washout into Route 46. 1 week later, it washed out Route 46. So, but they don't typically want to listen to me. Wait till you hear about Oxford Tunnel. I'll go into that more later. So that's another one of that same scene. Now, what's really neat in this one, if you can see it, look over there on your right side. I should have brought my laser pointer. You can see old railroad ties hanging over that side. But those aren't the Lackawanna main line. The two double track areas of that are over here. Those were from the Bell Del washout from 1955. That was when that was abandoned. The same flood of 55 that knocked out the covered bridge from the beginning of this presentation killed the junction there. So the first section of the original Bell Del line to be abandoned was the section from Belvedere to Minunkachuck. Because of this major washout, they could no longer have an adequate connection. There were actually still rails down there from that up until this last washout. And I think the rails were taken downstream at that time. So here's another interesting alignment. I don't know the year exactly of this one, but of course the station platform is now to the right of the two tunnels. The tower is over here instead of over there. So these alignments changed many times over the years. I haven't been able to figure it all out and haven't really had the time to pay attention to details, but there's a guy by the name of Fred Halick that does an amazing job with it. He wrote a book on the Blairstown Railroad, and he has what's called evaluation maps and all this. He's amazing, and he's contributed a lot to some of the newsletters on it. He had one just about Minunkachuck Junction, which was really good about 2 years ago. And there's what that looks like today. So that was one where you can actually see the portals a little better and compare. So, and again, this is all washed out today. Now here is a really nice clear image. You can see the tunnel portal to the left. This was the Detroit Photographic Company provided this one. Now at this time you can see, this is early 1900s, but... Okay, you stay close, okay? Okay. You can see it's already shrunk a little bit from some of those earlier photos. And again, what that looks like today. I tried to get the mouth of the tunnel, but see, it's a little too high. I was hanging over the side by like bushes, and it's really steep, so I couldn't do any better. Sorry about that.
There appears to be, if you can go back to that one, there appears to be, the next one back, there's like freight, there's a freight, was there an exchange between the two railroads of freight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there would have been. And it changed a little over the years. This one here is the post-standardization of the gauge, pretty obviously between the Lackawanna and the Pennsylvania Railroad. For a while, the two of them were at different grades, and then they raised the Pennsylvania Railroad's grade when they actually built the physical junction. Originally, it was just like a freight exchange because the gauges of the two lines didn't match. So that's...
Did Bell Del have a turntable there at one time?
I don't know of any turntable. I don't think so. There was a lot of room up there at one time, but I don't think there was ever enough for a turntable. I've never seen any photographs or valuation maps to show a turntable there.
I hiked that in the 90s, and that's just amazing to see how much, it was just a little tiny trail back in the 90s.
Yeah, and it's just, I think I threw a couple of them in here that was more recent. This is another one of the 1913 flood. Some similar stuff, as I said, happened in the 1950s and 55. And as I said, there were still rails hanging down into that I did it again, sorry. There were still rails hanging down into that gully up until this washed out a couple years ago.
When I was Ed's age, there was an apartment complex at the bottom of right along 46, and I lived there.
There still is. There's still
that's all gone.
Well, there's a mobile home court there.
Oh, no, this is right by the tunnel.
Oh, right by the tunnel.
It was at the bottom of the tunnel, and I remember the train going through the tunnel as a child.
Yeah,
That's all wiped out.
It hasn't. The Lackawanna was taken out of service there in 1970.
Right, it washed out in 67.
It washed out in 67.
Yeah.
But there were definitely tracks there, as I've seen from pictures, anyway, till about 70. And there's that same scene. There's another one that's interesting where you get a view of what happened during that the 1913 flooding was very well documented, and where the Catherine's Run flows down over this was just amazing. There's still a pretty cascade there. Now that cascade, none of these trees are there. Every single one of the trees in these photos was completely washed out and down into 46. 46 was closed for a while. So you can imagine the amount of water coming down that. Now, when the railroad was in service, it seems that they really made a big mistake by trying to utilize the creek bed as the railroad bed. And then they routed the creek up through an artificial wooden flume and then out and around the top of the Minunka-Chunk tunnels at the East Portal. You could still trace those flumes. It's amazing stone-lined waterways. But they didn't work that well. They'd always break or overflow, and then you'd have all these problems. And there's different generations of what they did to try to deal with it. This photo I got from Fred Palick's collection with a train approaching the tunnels. This is taken from right between the two portals. And this is what it looked like just before the flooding. I just redid these too. I should have put them on here. This is also from Fred's collection of a group of workers. I'm not sure who the dignitaries are, but this is with the interchange. It looks like this might have been right when it was first connected. What that looks like today, or not today, but recently. This is from one of my very early hikes. And this is what it looked like on our hike just a couple of years ago. Now, one of the problems also with the tunnel, this is one of the most historic railroad engineering feats in the state of New Jersey, and it's in bad shape. Where the person is standing on top of the tunnel now, it just recently collapsed. You can see daylight coming right in through up front there. And the state is planning on closing the tunnels off. You can still walk through it, but it's in really rough shape. It's around 1,000 feet long, and they've put stone blocks and stuff over the other side, so you kind of have to swim to get over to where you can even get up on the rocks and then go through. But it's only a Band-Aid for now. I've sent some stuff through recommending what they could do to try to stabilize and even open it up for pedestrian use. If you go out to Pennsylvania, the Great Allegheny Passage has multiple tunnels. Okay, you know where it is. Go ahead through. Remember where I showed you the light switch? All right, use the light switch, okay? I've brought up everything was used there. Shotcrete, which is like a spray concrete. They put a corrugated liner in one of the tunnels out there. There's basically doing like a stint. You could put a tunnel inside the tunnel like they did on the Pennsylvania Railroad line on the Mid-State Trail. And you could do any number of things to try to preserve it, even to get one portal opened up, because you have so much of this particular line is in public ownership. This would be a great draw, but also a great interpretive site for the history of railroads. It's one of the state's oldest railroad tunnels, with this portal here dating to 1856. And nobody seems to care enough about it, unfortunately, but I keep getting loud about it, so hopefully something will eventually happen.
I recently drove up Sarepta Road, and I noticed that there's a stone, looks like a stone road that they're building that they built.
They did build it. It was
So
for
does
this.
it go to the east side of this, the portal?
It does go to
We
near
could-
the east portal, and they have created a parking area that is now open up for hunting and stuff in Beaverbrook Wildlife Management Area. But it was built as a staging area for the remediation to keep Catherine's Run from flowing into the tunnel. That's why you have to kind of swim to get to the mouth of the tunnel now, because even though the tunnel is much drier than it was, it still has some water flowing through it, and they just put a dam over it.
We went there when it was frozen, so it was easier.
Yeah. Well, inside the tunnel, even during some of the heaviest ice, it's even more dangerous, because for one, you got icicles that fall down to the ceiling, big enough to kill you. And I always end up breaking and falling through the ice anyway. I haven't gone through the tunnel in about 2 years now, because it's getting to the point where it's way too dangerous. So this one here, I've seen this photo was in the book Down Along the Old Bell Dell, and it's also been, I think, falsely attributed, saying that it was showing the smoke from the blasting of the second tunnel portal, and I don't believe that's it at all. I think this has to do with some of the grading work under construction with raising the Pennsylvania Railroad to the level of the other line. So I'm not sure exactly, but I don't think they have it.
I can attribute that photo to 1869 from Percy Van Kirk's personal collection.
Okay.
And I found that out through Ruth Donald, who passed recently, when I bought some things from her estate. I have
Okay.
an original copy of that photo.
Really?
With writing on it.
I've never seen that name on it, so that's good to have. I'm gonna
Percy
take it.
Van Kirk, he was a friend of the family, Holsizer.
Uh-huh.
And, Aaron Holsizer was the gentleman who was the tower operator, I suppose, what do you call it, telegraph
Yeah.
operator? And he was a family member.
Oh,
And that's who
cool.
took that photo.
Remind me later. I want to get that name because I want to put it onto this thing.
Yep.
Thank you. 1869. So that could be that early then. So, all right, I'm interested in that. Anyway, that's what that looks like today. Quite a bit different. Now we got another scene at Minnetonka. Now this one's also from Lowenthal and Greenberg's book, and showing this is more the Pennsylvania Railroad going off in this direction. And you can see on the original one, you see the edge of the tunnel there to the far left. You can see it over here as well. These ones here, these are what we call stereoscopic images from the later 1800s. Now this is an earlier station building. Again, you can see it's a very different alignment. Now this dates back to the Lackawanna being broad gauge. And you can see the Pennsylvania Railroad has already been constructed over here on the right, but they don't connect just yet. And it's also quite a different station building than the one later that had extended awnings. So that makes this one a pretty interesting one. Whenever I'd be hiking through with all my friends here, I'd point at the curvature of the Minnetonka Mountain off in the distance there as we're walking from Delaware and say, oh yeah, we're going to walk all the way over there. And they're like, what? All the way over there? And, are you okay? Okay, good. People don't have an idea of what it's like. Hey, yeah, you can walk there. It'll be easy. And they just see these places that they're going from a distance. And it's an interesting thing that nobody really considers that kind of distance is doable. And once again, this one here came out really cool. I like this one. Wait, that's not right. Backspace. There. Did it skip one there? I thought it had. Oh well, whatever. Another one, this one's been extended up a little bit, so it's not quite the same. There's another one where you can see the DL&W Railroad. It had Pennsylvania Railroad written on the other side. Put my hand in front of it again. Yeah. And what that looks like today. Well, not today.
If you go back one,
Yes.
there's a white piece of paper there. Isn't that an indication that there's been an accident?
It could be. I don't know what exactly the details are. I talked to Chuck Walsh from the Lackawanna Cutoff Group. He's got a few notes on some of the stuff because he's he's gone to great extents looking at the Steamtown NHS archives photos and all the notes on them, but there's a lot of it's just a guess because there's not a lot of good notes on them. In fact, even some of the Bunnell and Barry ones, they didn't even date them on the early ones. So we're always trying to speculate even where they are. Sometimes we can recognize the spots, sometimes we can't figure out anything. So, and there's a lot of them without any kind of dates attributed at all. And the problem with a lot of these too is you find all these pictures online, and it's like, okay, whose collection is it from? Who's the original photographer? Do we know? And people just copy them and repost them, copy them and repost it, and then they get kind of lost. So one of the great things I love about having this is these things appear on the Metro Trails Facebook page regularly. If I know who the collection is, if I know who the photographer is, it's always going to be a part of my post. If I don't know who it is, then it's not on there. But more often than not, I can actually get information, just like you told me. I can get information just through sharing it. Here's who took the photo, here's whose collection it is, and then I can go back and edit it. And in that way, we're trying to put all the right attribution to these things. And I love being able to do that because with the internet today, so much of that stuff gets lost. And it drives me a little nuts. I want to be able to share the information as best we can, but we lose more of it all the time. And like this one here was really good. We could just throw that on there. Henry T. Wilhelm home photo. So that's great. I would add it all to the things myself that way too, but I am not very techy. I go out and take the pictures. I remember a lot of stuff. That's about the best I can do. These are great though when you have people copying them. We have a lot of different foreign groups are constantly copying and then completely reposting a lot of this stuff every day. So if you are on Facebook and you want to follow what we do, every day between 9 and 10 a.m., my page automatically posts a then and now history compilation. There are already over 2,000 of these posted. I have more than 1,500 of them still not published yet. So these other groups, if you follow any of them, there's one called I Grew Up in New Jersey. No, 6 of them called I Grew Up in New Jersey. One of them was Life in New Jersey, I Love New Jersey, New Jersey History, History of New Jersey State. All of them are fake groups. None of the profiles running them are even real people. They're just fake profiles from overseas. The reason they're doing it is because they're milking Facebook monetization. Facebook now pays. So when you follow the stuff that I'm doing, and you like it and you share it, that actually gives us money. It makes it so we can go out and do trips like we've been doing on the C&O Canal. I put together more of these. I can just keep doing more of them every day. But if you like it and share it from one of these foreign groups, they're getting the money. You're actually putting money in other people's pockets. Now, to put it into perspective, what I'm doing here, I used to do this for nothing. I never expected to get anything for it. Now, all of a sudden, it's just paying out. It was like a surprise. How much money do you think this has brought me in 1 month? The most, 2 months in the last year, I had 2 different months. This brought in $6 grand. $6 grand for nothing that I had even done. All the stuff for that entire time was all posts that I already had made up. And just threw that in the pocket. So our group did 3 trips on the C&O Canal. Nobody had to pay for anything. So that's helped us immensely because on one hand, it's like I've always had to throw out my own money to it. Now I'm finally able to do this and never have to beg for money. It's a nonprofit group. We take donations and stuff, but now if I want to do that, if I want to have, I bought a whole bunch of hand saws. If I want to go do trail work, I have money to dip into without ever having to beg anybody for money, and I love that because I hate asking for money. And it's great. All I got to do is throw something up online. But that gets to be really frustrating when you have fake groups and fake profiles just taking it and turning it in. So if you base it off of $6 grand for that, and I have 43,000 followers, some of them have 129,000 followers, so I've looked at the insights. In 1 month, we can assume that all based on plagiarized material, they are pulling in $24,000 in a month. So if you're liking and following I Grew Up in New Jersey, and that they're for every state, for every celebrity, every single thing you can have, it's all fake profiles. So that's my spiel on that. Don't follow the fake profiles. follow the real people, because it's not just our organization, it's every one of them out there. If there's a nonprofit you like, follow them, click like on it, and then help them out, because all the monetization
So
is...
how do you know who the fake ones are? You just gotta educate yourself.
When you go on to, before the end of this, I'll go on, I'll show you some of the stuff you can look for. There's, some of them have locked profiles.
Yeah, that's for you to explain it later. 'Cause we're
Yeah, there's plenty more to go into on that. There's a lot of ways to find them, and you can see a lot of telltale things. So I actually do hike in a lot of weird things. There I am in a Star Trek uniform. I have done full hikes in Star Trek uniforms. Now, in the middle, this is on top of the tunnel. This is like literally on top of it. When it was too cold to go through, I just went over the top of it. So this is in Beaverbrook Wildlife Management Area, and that's me when I was 22. I still have the badge. When it gets to be below 60-something degrees, I always hike in a suit and tie. So there's, it's gotten to be a gimmick we're known for. Now it's also the kid. I always have his stroller. I've already pushed the stroller over 2,000 miles. Is he okay, Andrew? Have you okay? Yeah, he's good. He's fine. All right. So it's great. I'll be walking down the street in a suit. People are like, Metro Trails. Like, yeah. And now I'm pushing the stroller. Metro Trails. There was a guy walking by a garage a couple weeks ago, and there I am in the same spot. And the guy comes out and says, "Hi, Ev." And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And he says, "You're famous, you know." And Ev looks up and goes, "Yes." So he knows it. So these are some stuff. This is from hike number 1, sitting beside Catherine's Run, and what that looks like now. So I get a kick out of doing this. My friend Jenna fell into Catherine's Run on the first hike. It was below freezing. And there's that scene.
I fell in the tunnel once.
Yes, you did.
And it was that one or the other one. I think it was that one.
So this board I'm standing on, this is in 1999. The boards are still there. Those are some tough boards. What's cool about those boards are, they are part of the original flume system that carried the waters of the Catherine's Run above the tunnel and out into the artificial waterway. They just pulled them off to the side. This was the start of that flume system. It would have just carried it out, and a lot of that wood is still sitting up there.
Those are the ones we walk across?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Those boards date back to the 1800s. So this is the East Portal of Minnetonka Tunnel. That was cut into some natural rock. This is the Detroit Publishing Company photo. And we also used this for the cover of my guidebook that Matt Davis and I wrote about how to follow the line and what stuff you'll see. It's the rough copy is still on metrotrails.org, but we're going to redo the whole book with a lot more information and try to talk to some more of the experts on the line and try to pull together some better information. I'd really like to try to see this turned into an official trail. There's so much of it's in public ownership. We're getting it going. We had a major meeting about the Lehigh and Hudson River Railway and trying to preserve the sections left of that. So I've been sneaking more of this into it. But this then and now was used as part of the book cover when we did it. So this is also from the 1913 flood. And what's interesting about this is you can see this is looking, you can see the tracks coming out of the water. This will be looking eastbound. And some of the foundations of these buildings are still up above, and there's even a well hole there. But some of them, it appears, were completely decimated following other floods. It looks like they tried to trench the line out instead of using the flume system and then the stone lined waterway. There's another trench in there that's independent from the railroad bed, and it seems like they must have obliterated a couple of houses and did that. I suppose it was probably following the 1913 flood. I don't have a lot of information on that, but that's what that scene looks like today. This one here, this one was sent to me by Henry Jewell from Hackettstown. Has another telltale in place there and an Erie Lackawanna engine, so it would be after the merger there. So this is the later years of service of it. And now there's a giant rock dam across the edge of where this photo is. It holds the water back from getting as heavily into the tunnel. In order to emulate this one, I had to climb out onto another precarious perch over the right-of-way and got that. So this one's also another pretty cool one. I assume where I was sitting was probably the same spot the original photographer was sitting. Here's what the right-of-way looked like in '97. That end really hadn't changed a whole lot from the way it looked then, except for the trees are a little bigger. I used to think it was cool to take pictures sideways. Now it just annoys me to try to emulate my own pictures. Like, why did I do this? This was dumb. So some of these scenes are kind of similar, but again, the trees have gotten so much bigger. It's really interesting. Makes me feel old. So Monongahchuck was always one of those spots that it's kind of a mess to get through. There's always been people that wanted to go through. And then we have a really nice stretch. We got to Sarepta, Upper Sarepta Road, all the way out to Bridgeville. It was always just a wonderful walk. It still is to this day. It's clear. It's like a rail trail the whole way through from that spot. People were always illegally dumping, so there was almost a whole living room set here we were taking a break on.
I thought there was a quarry up there.
There was. Ledge Road is named for the quarry, and it had a little quarry spur. You can see, if you're driving Ledge Road, there's a flat area. You can see where it used to go into it.
That didn't encroach on the trail?
No, the quarry, well, the sand quarry doesn't. The quarry was actually a stone quarry in Ledge Road in Sarepta. The one you're talking about is the sand quarry, and that one did encroach on the right-of-way. That's coming up, though. But anyway, that's the same scene as this.
That's Griffith's Pit.
Yeah. That would be where this is. This is looking towards Jenny Jump, and you can see the right-of-way there, and that's where the sand quarry is now. That has decimated the right-of-way. The right-of-way was still intact through that area from the Bridgeville station from up until, I think the time that they finally did it through was, it would have been late summer 1998 was the last time we could get through without having to go up onto any of the slopes or anything. And then it just got quarried away. Here is the Bridgeville station. On the Warren Railroad, the old Warren Railroad route, this is the only station still standing in New Jersey. And people don't realize it's still standing because it's got a building on the front of it. Again, this is a painted photograph. This one might have actually had people in the original one because they are to scale. And there was a creamery building to the left. There's still foundations there of that. So there's now a new building on the front of it, but the original station building, which was stone, this must have had stucco on it. The station burned. So the original roof was shot on it, but I got to go in it right after it burned, and it was, the framework is all still there. I thought for sure they were going to demolish it, but it's still back there. So it's now public trail along the left side of it up to this point, and the station is still back there. Now, one of the other things we do along the way is we always stop at Hot Dog Johnny's, because it's right down the slope from it. And that's a tradition that's been there since the early 1900s. In fact, the original Hot Dog Johnny was, he worked at the mines out in the Wharton area and opened the original stand on the intersection of what's now 46 and 31. And then he moved over to the current location. And they're still going strong at that same spot. It looks like that today. So it's always another big fun thing. We always stop at Hot Dog Johnny's, and they don't act happy to see us, but they are. I know we drive them crazy. We have a couple people in the group.
Just don't get too excited about getting your food, or you could fall flat on your face on the gravel.
Right, exactly that. There was one time my buddy Justin climbed up on the roof, and there was a big hot dog. There it is. He went to take a bite out of the giant hot dog. They didn't like that. Then we have friends with guitars. They come out, and we're singing too loud inside. So they have reason to be upset with us, but we give them good business. Here's a nice 1960s postcard image of Hot Dog Johnny's. Now, this is also, Route 46 should really be a scenic byway. What really makes 46 cool is the section from Hackettstown up to where it hits Route 80 is like a step back in time. But it's not just because of it being still a two-lane highway, following along the Peak West River and being particularly scenic. It's got a lot of historic establishments that date back to the 20s and 30s. Hot Dog Johnny's is just the most famous one. You got Luigi's is just up the road, it's still there, a nice Italian restaurant. You've got the Riverside is now a pizza place and liquor store, that's still there and going. There's more of these little eateries along that entire stretch. Log Cabin Inn dates way back.
They had the Crossroads Diner, I don't know where they moved it, but they actually moved.
That was moved, that was actually, I don't remember where it went, they put a Dunkin' Donuts there though.
I know.
Someplace in New
So-
York State they took it.
But down the river comes up to my friend's heads here. During the same flood that washed out Monunkeechunk a couple of years ago, like my head will be touching the top of the tunnel if I walk up to it. So now the water's clearly way over my head. It's got 2 major collapses. And this is the last time I ever went through it. There's my nephew Jacob in the front. This is the last time I ever went through it. You can see already it's silted in quite a lot. You still had the boards there that held on to the doors there. On the top of it, there used to be a plaque that read Warren Railroad 1856, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But the tunnel has gotten worse and worse, and when we went through this time, it had just collapsed. I was not expecting to get to the collapse, and we climbed over it, and that was my last time ever through. The collapse had so much dirt in it. It had gotten through the rocks, and it's up to surface dirt. So I said, no more. We can't take a chance again.
I know walking through the tunnels it's icy as hell.
It was horrible, yeah.
Like if you go in March or April, it's icy as hell walking.
It's actually easier to do it in March, or was easier to do it in March, because the temperature difference wasn't as crazy. It's freezing cold. We used to use a raft. So this old raft, it eventually got grounded and I couldn't drag it back into the water. And the raft turned into nothing but a mess. I've actually got a pair of shoes that broke sitting on a shelf inside the tunnel too. So here we have a scene. This one, I got this photo from Richard Harpster. And I like to talk about Mr. Harpster at this time. He was a reporter for the Newark paper. And he's one of the guys that's responsible for saving Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area from the Tox Island project. He's probably the first journalist that wrote in opposition of the whole plan. So he was a really interesting guy. I got to know him before he passed away, and I got to use a bunch of his photos for some of this stuff. But that plaque you can see is in there. And I remember when it was there when I was little. Then one day all of a sudden it was gone. Mr. Harvester was taking a walk down in the tunnel one day, and his family still lives up on Mine Hill Road. He was taking a walk back and got there and found the plaque missing. And there was a guy there doing photographs himself, and they said they came in with like a crane on the back of the truck and removed it. And Harvester said, "Did you happen to get a picture that had them doing that?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I did." The guy stayed in touch with Harpster. They had license plate number of the truck that took it out. So Harpster looked up who it was. He didn't get a hold of the police or anything, and he went to the guy's house and talked to, I guess, the kid's dad and said, "Here's what you're going to do. We know you stole the plaque. You're going to donate it to the Warren County Historical Society, and that's it." So he did. The plaque was recovered, and it is now built into the rear wall of the Shippen Manor, which is the 1860s colonial ironmaster's mansion in Oxford. Beautiful place. And it's kind of an appropriate place for it because the road behind the mansion is the 1856 right-of-way of the Warren Railroad. So it's back there, and you can go up and see it. It's a giant thing, too. That doesn't really quite do it justice how big it is. So, giant marble epitaph. And there's what it looks like now. Or not now. That's what it looked like a couple years ago. Here we are.
And there was a fireman on one of the trains that died in the tunnel trying to get through it. There was something went wrong with the engine, and they got stuck, and the fireman died.
I hadn't heard about that one. The only death that I know of happened right here. And I think he was Hungarian. One of the workers there, and they don't know exactly what happened, but they think it might have been a racial thing with some of the local farmers was suggested, or there was a disagreement with this guy and a store owner about some sort of purchase or something. but they found the guy dead just behind where I was standing taking this photo back on the first hike. It's a crummy picture, but I included it just because it's back on hike number 1. At the time, you could see the pinpoint for the end of the tunnel. This tunnel is almost exactly a ½ mile long. The thing is, it goes directly under Route 31. And one of the collapses is almost directly under Route 31. One of the big deal things that bothers me so much about it is, over the years passing through the tunnel, I used to ride my bicycle through it. After the collapses, you can't do that. I could climb over both of them, but it's just really bad now. If you were traveling the tunnel from the east portal, when you get right underneath Route 31, there was some cracking going on with it. So the railroad had taken a piece of railroad rail and they bent it to an arch and then put it up in the ceiling to brace it. That railroad rail has fallen to the floor. So there's a piece of railroad rail laying on the floor. I was actually trying to ride my bike through it the one time and hit the thing. So now we know that that thing is laying there. It's only a matter of time before it collapses. And when something collapses, even if it isn't directly under the highway, I went in and I measured it. The railroad rail is directly under the highway. But even if it hadn't been, even the other 2 collapses, one happened in 2017, one happened in 2005. Either of those collapses are close enough to the right-of-way for 31. Just because it collapses doesn't mean it's going to create a sinkhole right where that is. It can go anywhere like this. So the entire right-of-way of Route 31 heading into Oxford is a potential hazard right now. And I can't believe they're not paying any more attention to this after all the sinkhole issues we've had with Interstate 80 and the mines underneath it. This is a railroad tunnel. Those iron mines that collapsed over in Wharton area on Route 80 are tiny. You look at the maps. You look at the maps, it's like, you know, they're smaller, they go in far, but this is a ½ mile long tunnel that's bigger than the size of a locomotive. So this is definitely going to come down eventually. Senator Steinhardt did reach out to me and I sent him all of my photos of the inside. So he's trying to address it, but nobody really wants to address anything on it.
See the rocks on the left side there?
Yeah.
Those rocks, what happened to Jenny again with those, like, one fell on her head or something?
No, tree branch.
Oh, it's a tree branch? Oh.
Tree branch. Is that the section?
Yeah, that's that exact section.
That's where it was.
Yeah, I might have taken it that day, I don't remember. No, wait, that wouldn't have been, there was trees on the
That
thing.
was 2016.
So this is also the east portal of the tunnel. It's before the concrete facade went in on it. It did have some improvements done on it. The concrete facade, I think, was 1906. So this predates it. And this is either when it was gauntlet track or switch single track. There used to be a road down through here, and there was even a house, which might have been the tunnel keeper's house up on the right at this point. And there's what that looks like today.
Was that something built off to the left there in the last picture?
Where?
Like on the left side?
Yeah, it is. It's. I think that might have been a drainage structure. I'm not sure because I don't see a tower there unless they replaced it and put it something else. I really don't know what that is. Neil Shankweiler photo. This is more later years of service. And I went down here the day that I emulated this one. I went down with this guy Bruce from the New Jersey Herald. We got them to fence it off. I told them, look, this is a major problem, and you can see the chain link that's in there. They didn't initially want to do it though. They fenced off the side in Oxford, which was going into water like this that nobody was going to go into. And I had to guilt them into actually putting the fence on this side, because this is the side everybody wants to walk into. You can still walk into this side and be dry for half the tunnel. But if you did try to push through and get out the other side, and you got to this impenetrable fence, you might perish trying to get back through. So I was really pushing for trying to keep people safe.
You have to trespass to get to this side, do you not?
No, actually you don't. And I made sure that we didn't on that. It's the one guy says that you have to do it, but this part of the right-of-way right at the tunnel is state land, and there is state land that goes up and touches 31.
Where would you park then, right at that?
I park up at the Fish and Wildlife lot. I used to park, there used to be a little picnic table and a pull-off over there that's state land. I used to park there. But now they bought an old hunting supply store, demolished the building and turned it into a parking lot, so it's not far away. You can approach
Yeah, you park where the big store used to be.
Yeah. So you park in that state lot and then you walk back down to it. You just want to be sure that you're on the public land when you go into it.
There's a hunting camp on the other.
There is a hunting camp, but that's further up.
Of that, right? Yeah.
They are, and they don't like people on it, but they don't own all the way down on the south side of the tunnel.
Right.
If you go onto NJ GeoWeb and hit the public land, you can actually see exactly where you got to go on.
So you just kind of like sneak behind the guardrail and walk.
You don't. You got to go the other side. Behind the guardrail is private land. It actually had a path. That's where the ATVs used to go down.
I mean, you go all the way to the end, go to the south end of that, and then.
Around the top of it.
Yeah, right, exactly, from the bottom.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weird stuff. Like if you look at the very top of the tunnel where it looks like a shelf, if that were all closed off, and they didn't do this either, you could climb in from the top, get into the tunnel, and climb down in the tunnel on top of the tunnel, and you can walk a ways out on top of the arch. The brick-lined arch doesn't touch the rocks. You can go out across it. And then there's sticks and stuff you can climb down into the tunnel from there. So we used to do all this stuff. And I think the worst experience I ever had with this was I was using my phone to take pictures and using it as a flashlight to get through. You can't see anything. There's water coming through on you. I'm wearing a suit and tie that I swore I wasn't going to ruin this time. And my friend Lurch and I go through. We climb through. I step into this disgusting dead deer carcass. So there was this. I can't right now. Why don't you have some more you're talking about? So I stepped into this disgusting dead deer carcass, and I was so mortified. So I lost it in there, and I get out. I climb down. I'm walking along, and I'm like, oh crap. So I had to go all the way back, climb up, climb back down, climb back in, and there's my phone in the carcass. So I had to pull it out, and it still worked. But yeah, it was. That's probably my worst experience in over 20 years of leading this hike.
Did you take a picture?
No, no, I wanted nothing to do with that carcass. They still tease me about it to this day. Ugh. And what was it going to do? It probably got hit up on 31 and made its way down into there, and then couldn't make it out. I have friends who would go in probably if they knew about it because it was a buck. So this one, a friend sent me this one here. This is the bridge crossing of Jackson Valley Road. I walked across this when I was really little. This was torn out probably around 85, and I remember walking across it with my grandfather. Now the abutments are still there. And this would have been done, this was clearly a different bridge before it, because the one side is stone and the other side is concrete. So it was a narrower underpass at one time. I've never seen a picture of the original. But there's what that looks like today. Now that land is all state park land on both sides of it. You can actually go to a grade crossing in the field to the north, all on public land, the one direction, and all the way through Washington, almost to the old lumber yards, is all state park land. There's people that will try to kick you off, but they don't have any right to. I consider it to be one of the #1 pedestrian improvement projects in Warren County, because that right-of-way goes through. We unfortunately had one of the students he died during one of the football games a few years ago. But emergency services have a very tough time because Route 31's over here, high school's over here, Jackson Valley Road's over here, and those two come together like this. The police station's like right here. So they gotta leave the police station, come up, come back down and around. You got traffic, you got the traffic light. You've got a problem with parking at the school. If they were to create a path across the state parkland from the police station, you got a couple hundred feet and you're at the high school. So if you were to develop a trail, it brings you to downtown, it brings you to the north, they could acquire it. So it serves education about the history of this line, it serves recreational purposes, it serves public safety purposes, just simplifies everything. So I would love to see that turned into a trail, because I think it would serve a greater function than most any other trail connection in the county. And I brought it up to the police and they love it, the town manager loves it, so I'm still pushing for it. But I think one day it's bound to happen, but it would be great to just be able to have that access for the police to be able to get there. You could even use some of that other property for a student park So there's the Jackson Valley Road overpass, and that's what it looks like today. Now this one was taken from, a couple of people couldn't figure out where it was. I knew right away. There's an old farm overpass just north of Jackson Valley Road. And this is, the right-of-way is state parkland from here until, right over there is a farm grade crossing over there. That's right about where the state parkland ends before the tunnel. But there's a great old farm overpass, and it's a neat one where it's old stone abutments, but then capped with concrete, with a concrete bridge on top of it after the locomotives got too large to pass under the original.
When is this picture from?
This picture, I think, was 1966. It was the Shankweiler ones, I believe. And that scene today looks like this. So it's grown quite a lot, and it's kind of heartbreaking for me to see it, because for many years, from when I started leading the hikes, this was totally clear. It was as clear as any rail trail you'd ever be on. And it stayed clear until around 10 years ago. It just started growing in. Nobody was riding on it anymore. And it's gotten worse. Now it's some of the most impenetrable, horrible briars ever. Carolyn lost sunglasses in there.
If anyone finds them, let me know.
Sean went up looking for him, he couldn't find him. Right? And it's horrible in there. But I think when we did it, we were so drunk that nobody cared.
Let's go, I have access to weed whackers and hedge trimmers now with the lithium packs. Let's just go do some maintenance one of these days.
I would love to, but technically I work for that, so I'll get in trouble. So this is I don't want to cause problems. So this is a cool one here. Does anybody have a guess what this is? It's in Washington. Hint.
Dunkin' Donuts?
No. This is the Morris Canal Bridge. This is the Lackawanna Railroad crossing the Morris Canal, and it was right around the time it was abandoned. Morris Canal was abandoned in 1924, and they actually had coal chutes at one time where they could load coal from the trains onto the canal boats. This area was called Port Washington, and it was the center of commerce in 1856 when the Lackawanna was first built. The junction didn't exist yet. The Morris and Essex Railroad reached Hackensack in the 1850s. As I said, they were planning on going out through the water gap. When the Lackawanna Railroad already did that job, in 1866, they extended to Phillipsburg. So there was nothing there in 1856 and for the first 10 years. And so the original Washington station was located near this location, closer to the Morris Canal, because that was the major trade interchange. And these through girder bridges were not the original canal crossings, but they actually did exist while the canal was still in service until 1924. So I suspect that William Barry took these photos possibly when the canal was getting close to abandonment. And that's the same scene today. The tops of the abutments are still visible. There's another one of it. Now look near the very center of the picture. You can see the curve of some of those abutments. And in this one, you should be able to see clearly where the tops of those abutments still exist. Some of them were still in pretty recognizable condition, but some of them were bulldozed out of the way off to the right there. Oh yes, Ed? So there's also this junction that you see here too that was it was not a connection to the one in the original one. That was a later thing. That was the spur to American Can that came much later. So that's why there was a switchgear. That was long after the canal had been abandoned. This is the same thing, but we're looking now from the other direction towards the later junction site in Washington. This spur over here, there was a couple of spurs. One of them served from the other side, textile thing it was originally, and then it served Warren Lumber, had a spur to it, and up until some of the later years too. So that section over there goes into what was more recently Warren Lumber, and that's the same scene there. But the main track, you can kind of see those ties off to the side. This is another one of, you can see the canal bridge in the distance. I should try to emulate this one in the winter, because it's not really as interesting. I do it when I get a chance. You know, I work full time, and then I run around and do all this stuff, and it's half the time it's in the middle of a hike, so I don't always have the opportunity to do it when it's most convenient. People say to me, "Well, you should do a better job with that." It's like, in all my other free time. So anyway, this is also the canal bridge, but this is looking from the other distance over. They built a building in Washington and never completed it for more industrial, but nothing happened. But that's the same seed. This is one of them from one of my hikes early on. There used to be rails going right through a long Warren lumber and out into the cut where it becomes state land. There's the American Can spur to the right. None of that has really been used in years, but you can still see those tracks at this time. This was taken in 2003. Some of these had only more recently been removed from that switch. And you got your Warren lumber spur there on the left. And that's what it looks like more recently. They did clear a little bit of it, but not to here. They're using it for track storage now. The Chesapeake and Delaware subsidiary, the Black River and Western, is getting a lot of use out of the area, and we're seeing way more activity there than we've seen in years, so it's nice to see. So Route 31, I mentioned Route 31 used to just dead end in Washington, or when it was Route 30 anyway. It just came to a stop because they had to build the bridge, and it was, I understand, a couple of years before they could finally get it through. But this is looking through to where Route 31 would go. And that's the same scene now. And another one of it back in the early days, and the Washington Circle was still in place at the time. Yes. And this is taken over by Nicola's Pizza. Now this one here, this stone arch, is where Route 57 is now. And this is taken during the construction of the concrete arch that's now there. This deck girder bridge is under the concrete arch that you drive under on Route 57 today. Up until that was built, I think around like 1906, you would have had to take a hard turn to the left and then down onto what's now called the boulevard to come through. This was a problem not only for traffic and it being like this bottleneck where you couldn't see through very well to the other side. The trolley had been developed in 1906 through Washington, Eastern Washington Traction Company, and bringing the trolley through there in addition to other traffic, that was just a big nightmare. They needed to straighten it. So this was demolished, and much of the stonework, some of it's built into a wall, but there's a house on the other side that took some of it. There's some of the original wall and the angle that the original bridge took. So there's what the original bridge looked like when it was that sort of curve and the original tower on top of it. The road already predated the railroad. That was the Easton Morristown Turnpike, chartered in 1811, and the town of Washington was built around that. The town of Washington is another one of these weird name things. It was originally called Mansfield. That was downtown Mansfield, the center of the settlement of Mansfield, and it was named for the ancestral homeland of the Bowlby family. And it was renamed Washington because on the northeast corner was a stagecoach stop called the Washington House. So I always tell people, Washington isn't named for George Washington, it's named for a bar. It's named for George Washington. So, people like to say there's 6 or 7 Washingtons in the state of New Jersey. My argument is that there's only one. And this is the true Washington. It's the one that's downtown. When you type Washington, New Jersey into Google Maps, when you put an address, Washington, New Jersey, there's only one. It's the one in the middle of Warren County. If you're from the one in Morris County, you're not from Washington Township. You're either from Long Valley, you're from Flocktown, you're from parts of Hackettstown, Middle Valley, Schooley's Mountain, all those other places. Each one of the other municipalities, even the Bergen County one, is officially Township of Washington. You have to use the full term, so it's not. There's no other places that's quite a definitive location when it comes to the Washington name. So anyway, that's your original turnpike underpass, and that's that scene today. You can see some of that wall to the left is still intact. And then there's the later one with the Eastern Washington Traction Company. That lasted until the 1920s. It was originally supposed to extend into Hackettstown, but they had landowner issues. They couldn't acquire the right-of-way. So they only ever extended the right-of-way of the trolley as far as Port Murray. and what that looks like today. There they are during the construction of that same bridge. And today, I got the sidewalk rid of that, right?
So that's a through girder bridge encased in concrete?
Usually there's some kind of stuff underneath it. I believe it is in there, and when you look at some of the deconstruction of some of the bridges, like the one in Hampton, which looked almost identical to the two, the Morrison Essex Division and the old Lackawanna Take in Washington, there was a girder through across under that.
Right.
So yeah, I believe there's some of that under there. Some of that might have been temporary structure, but there was always some kind of reinforcement in that. This one here was from the Washington Centennial book. And here's a nice postcard colorized image of it. So I grew up under that. And another one of the original bridge. This is looking from on top of it, and I think some of it didn't save properly. There's the tower looking from the top and what it looks like today. This one would be a Watson Bunnell image, early 1900s. And this is looking from a little further back, and you have the Needham organ factory. Washington was the organ capital of the world. You had your Cornish organs, Needham organs. You also had a Baby Grand factory. It was a major producer of that. The thing that really did it in, I talked to one of the descendants, who was a friend of mine, Jack Cornish. He said one of the biggest problems his family had with the organ factories was that everybody smoked. And they had devastating fires. The rosins and stuff, because remember, a piano is a string instrument. And just like a violin, these rosins, they have these rosins that were used in it, they said were highly flammable. So they would have these fires that would just completely destroy their buildings. And so some of these organ factories were destroyed, but the one over there on the right is also now apartments. It's been rebuilt into apartments in Washington. So it's an earlier example of some creative reuse.
Is that the Railroad Ave apartments now?
Yes. Now I included this. This is an interesting one here. The Mayor's House, Cobblestone House, Washington, New Jersey. This is located on the boulevard. In more recent years, it was the Kirby House. George Kirby lived there, who was also my uncle's best friend. But the relevance of this building to the railroad is that it was built from the stone of the original